on all the action with FanDuel Sportsbook. Because during the conference finals, new users get 30-1 odds on any team to win their next game. That means you can win $150 on a $5 bet. I've been betting basketball on FanDuel Sportsbook all season long, and there are so many ways to win with FanDuel. Their app is simple to use with unique and fun bet types, such as same-game parlays and exclusive always-on promotions, so you get more action out of every game day. New users sign up now for FanDuel Sportsbook with promo code Hennig to bet on the NBA Conference Finals at 30-1 odds. That's promo code Hennig exclusively on FanDuel Sportsbook's app. Must be 21 or to play and present in New Jersey, new users only. Must wager on designated offer market. $10 first deposit required. $150 max bonus. See full terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
South Jersey's play-by-play home for the Eagles,
touchdown,
Sixers,
it's good,
and Flyers.
Oh, big save by Carter Hart.
97.3 ESPN, WENJ, WENJ HD, Millville, Atlantic City, a Town Square media station. This is Sports Bash Saturday with Josh Hennig, live from the Matt Blatt Kia Studios. Now, Sports Bash Saturday. Here's Josh Hennig.
Josh Hennig here on Sports Bash Saturday. 97.3 ESPN FM, the 97.3 ESPN mobile app, and we are live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter, where you can watch the show as we are live in the Matt Blatt Kia Studios here on 97.3 ESPN. We got a lot to get to today. We have 2 hours to get to it with, no power hours. They get the full 2 hours of the show today. Of course, the Phillies are back in action. They split the doubleheader last night with the Mets. So at 1:20, we'll be joined by Bob Wankel from Crossing Broad to get more into the Phillies, because this Phillies team makes no sense. Aaron Nola goes out there and ties a Major League Baseball record in consecutive strikeouts, Tom Seaver of all people, and then they lose that game. The next game, Matt Moore's first start in like over almost 2 months, it seems like, and they win the game. What the heck is going on with this team? I mean, the pitcher, great pitcher, you lose the game. Mad pitcher, you win the game. What? Or is it the uniform? Is it really the uniforms? I don't know. Maybe it is the uniforms. You know, I like the look of those Phillies Reds on the road uniform. It's not a bad look, and they won with them. Now, I don't want the White Sox uniform. You haven't seen the White Sox uniforms. Their alternate unis look like they're pajamas, basically. It's ridiculous. But the Phillies Red, I'm cool with. So maybe that's why they won. So we'll ask Bob Wankel about that coming up at 1:20. Also, Sixers offseason is in full swing. Everyone's got a theory. Everyone's got a perspective on this team. We will be joined by Sixers beat writer, I should say, Kevin McCormick, covers Sixers for 97.3 ESPN.com and for Sports Illustrated. He will join us coming up today, actually, at 12:20. Well, it's tonight somewhere in the world, right? It's probably tonight in what, I don't know, Israel? Russia? Anyway, Josh Hennig here on 97.3 ESPN. First of all, I also want to thank the people over at the PFL. I was up late last night because I was covering the last event in Atlantic City. Amazing season they completed. If you missed my interview with defending women's lightweight champion Kayla Harrison, the two-time Olympic champion, and her on the perspective on the champion's mentality, that's over on the 97.3 ESPN YouTube channel. But while I was at the fights, I also got a chance to look on my laptop and watch not just the Phillies game, but the NBA playoffs. You know, I was multitasking. So, and that NBA playoff game was nuts last night. And you saw Giannis take over that game last night. And it really gets back to Scottie Pippen had that interview in GQ. And as I mentioned before, I preface anything that Scottie Pippen said in that GQ article by wondering how inebriated he was, because he was definitely, drinking some of his new bourbon. Apparently Scottie Pippen's got his own new bourbon line. So part of the GQ article was him promoting the bourbon line. Well, I can't promise you how insane mind he was when he said some of the things that he said about Kevin Durant and LeBron James and Jordan. But listen, I think he was 100% right about Ben Simmons, because what he said in the GQ article was that Ben Simmons could be like Giannis, but he's not. And you know why? because according to Scottie Pippen, he's afraid of failure. I thought that was a powerful statement by Scottie because it really digs deep into what the real problem is. Now, I'm going to read the full quote for you guys right here if you haven't seen it here on Sports Bash Saturday on 973 ESPN. If you're watching on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter, I'm going to put it on the screen for you so you can see the quote I'm talking about here. But this was Scottie Pippen in that GQ article speaking about Ben Simmons. And I want to jump down to specifically the part where he gets into Ben Simmons' weakness. He says, quote, Ben Simmons is a good basketball player, but the weakness is shooting the basketball. If you take that away from Simmons, he's got no weakness. That's Giannis's weakness too, but Giannis don't mind being humiliated, Scottie Pippen says. That's the difference between him and Ben Simmons. Giannis will go to the free throw line and shoot 2 bleeping air balls and come right down the court the next time and try to dunk on you. If Ben Simmons misses a free throw, he's going to pass it before he gets to the free throw line on the other end. Scottie Pippen goes on to say he didn't even want to cross half court with the ball because he was afraid of being humiliated going to the foul line. That's Scottie Pippen. That's a Hall of Famer. Now, again, some of the other quotes you saw about Kevin Durant, LeBron James, and Michael Jordan, take it with a grain of salt because he might have been inebriated. But you know what? I'm not judging the guy for that. But I think he makes a great point. That Ben Simmons doesn't want to be embarrassed. He doesn't want to be humiliated. And Giannis is unafraid. Giannis don't care. Giannis don't care that he airballs a free throw. Giannis don't care. And I think part of it has to do with their upbringing. And this is not a judgment on people's backgrounds as a general principle. This is just a specific mano-a-mano comparison. Giannis came from nothing. Giannis came from dirt poverty. You know, him and his brothers were hustling in the streets of Greece to make money when they were kids, just so they could put food on the table. And when he came to America, his whole goal was to bring his family to America because he never wanted his mom and his dad to ever not be able to eat ever again, he said. That's a different world you come from. Ben Simmons' dad was a professional basketball player. He is the first modern age prodigy basketball in the social media world. You know, LeBron James didn't grow up in social media world. Michael Jordan didn't grow up in social media world, but Ben Simmons did. So his entire life was put out there in front of everyone. And so Ben Simmons grew up in some privilege, in some good times, in some being coddled and taken care of. So he doesn't understand that you have to fall down to learn how to get back up. You don't get better by not doing. And Ben is afraid. You see the look on his face when he's on the court sometimes. He has a look of, almost like he didn't want to be there sometimes. And that's why I keep telling people, I'm worried about Ben Simmons' mental health. I think the reason why the Sixers need to trade Ben Simmons has less to do with the Sixers, than to do with Ben. He needs to get out of here. He is never going to get better as long as he's in Philadelphia. He has to have a change of scenery. He has to go somewhere else. He has to have the coddled environment that has been built for him broken. He can't keep going on like this. So when Adrian Wojnarowski reported that, oh, by the way, Ben Simmons and his camp there, Rich Paul, he's meeting with Ben Simmons' team, the Sixers, about his future, but no trade request has been brought up. I'm telling you, that's the first sign that he's getting traded. You don't have those conversations unless you're already thinking about it. Because I think the Sixers know what the rest of us do. I think the Sixers have realized that Ben Simmons is never going to get better as long as he's here. Daryl Morey didn't draft Ben Simmons. Doc Rivers wasn't a part of the team when they drafted Ben Simmons. That was basically 3 GMs ago. Colangelo drafted Ben Simmons. Remember that? It wasn't Elton Brand or Daryl Morey. No, Daryl Morey got Tyrese Maxey. Elton Brand got Matisse Thybulle. Those are 2 nice young players. They had nothing to do with the drafting of Ben Simmons. So you really think that they're committed 100% to Ben Simmons? Of course they're not. So when you think about the situation with Ben Simmons and Giannis, yes, they are both similarly physically talented, but they come from different worlds. And because they come from different worlds, that's why they are where they are. That's why Giannis is not afraid to miss a free throw or miss a three-point shot, because he's just trying to win. All he cares about is winning. He doesn't care about his image. He doesn't care about failure, because Giannis, as far as he's concerned, his life is good. Giannis has already been to hell. He's been through the worst that life can give him. Giannis has been through dirt poverty. Giannis has lived a life that many Americans could never understand. Ben Simmons has lived a life that many Americans understand. Ben Simmons has lived a upper middle class life in American terms. Giannis lived in poverty. That creates a mentality for somebody. It creates a level of desperation. It creates a level of context and perspective. And I think the problem for Ben is that he is afraid of being, as Scottie Pippen said, he's afraid of the humiliation. He's afraid of failure. He's afraid of how people will look at him. And I have to wonder, when Doc Rivers said, Ben Simmons and his family has gone through things that I don't know what it's like to go through. You have to wonder how much of what's going on with him personally has impacted him professionally. And if that's the case, Ben Simmons needs help. He doesn't need a shooting coach. He doesn't need an off-season training program. He needs to get off social media. He needs to hand his phone over to somebody. He needs to go away and just work on himself. And I think he needs a fresh start somewhere else with a new team and a new situation. And you know what? If he goes to another team and becomes the player that we all hoped he could be, good for him. I'm not holding it against him. I'm not getting mad at him. And I'm not getting mad at the Sixers either, because sometimes you got to move on. And as I said this week on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN, Josh Hennig hanging out with you here on Sports Bash Saturday, I've said it 100 times. You don't think about moving on from somebody unless the process began already. Divorces don't happen overnight. Breakups don't happen overnight. People are not fired overnight from jobs. You go through a process where first you think about, man, can I go on with this person? Then there's the next step. Well, what's life without this person? And then you move on to say, well, what do I do if I move on from this person? There's all these different layers that go into this. So you're telling me, well, when the Sixers talked with Rich Paul, just because there was no formal trade request made, that they didn't discuss what the world would be like without Ben Simmons in the Sixers uniform? They're already thinking about it. And they have to. Because after watching the Bucks win that game last night, and by the way, I was wrong about that spread. Holy Toledo, the Bucks crushed the Hawks last night. They kicked them in the face and told them to stay down and not get up if you know what's good for you. I was wrong about that spread. I was right about the Giannis stats, but I was wrong about the Hawks. But man, the way Giannis played last night, it's amazing to watch him, because he really is a force of nature. Giannis proved that you don't have to be an elite shooter in this league to be great. You just have to have a good team around you to complement you, as long as you're willing to put in the work. Giannis was 0 for 3 from 3, but he still finished with 25 points. Giannis had 1 turnover last night. You know, Joel Embiid had 8 turnovers in his final game of the season with the Sixers. And Ben Simmons, his turnovers were way up in the postseason compared to the regular season. But you know what happened as well last night? The Bucks played great defense. The supporting cast stepped up. How about Drew Holiday? 3 for 4 from 3, 7 assists, 22 points. And how about the bench? The Bucks bench last night. The bench, not the starters, okay? The bench hit 7 threes last night. Yeah, Pat Connaughton, Bryn Forbes, Bobby Portis, and Diakate hitting threes. Boom, boom, boom. And you know why they were hitting those threes? Because their leader was Giannis, and he was unafraid. He didn't care if he missed a 3. He didn't care if he missed a free throw. He didn't care because Giannis only cares about greatness. And he understands what it's like to go through hell. And when you've already been at the lowest point, nothing scares you anymore. Nothing worries you. Kayla Harris talked about it yesterday with me on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN. You know, she was someone who was sexually molested as a child. She was abused as a child. And she says there is nothing any fighter can bring to her in a judo match or in the cage that's going to scare her. She's afraid of no one and nothing. Because when you've gone through things in life, they prepare you for big moments. And if you can survive things when you're younger, it makes you stronger and tougher when you're older. And the Bucks won last night because Giannis is unafraid. Sports Bash Saturday here on 97.3 ESPN, live in the Matt Black Kia studios. Matt Black Kia, then we get you approved today. Matt Black Kia, Black Horse Pike, Egg Harbor Township. Visit them online at mattblackkia.com. Coming up next, talk with Kevin McCormick, Sixers beat writer for 97.3 ESPN.com and for Sports Illustrated. We'll get more into the Sixers and the NBA playoffs with him right here on 97.3 ESPN FM, the 97.3 ESPN mobile app, powered by First Bank of Seattle City. And we are live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter, where you can watch the show and chime in. 609-403-0973 is the text board. The stream is open if you want to jump on that stream and comment with us. I am here till 2 p.m. today, hanging out with you guys, Josh Hennig, at Josh Hennig on Twitter.
Today on Major League Baseball on ESPN Radio.
He swings and launches one, and this game is tied. Wow! Monster home run from Harper.
It's an NL East showdown as the Philadelphia Phillies head to Citi Field to face Jacob deGrom and the first-place New York Mets.
Jacob deGrom, we're seeing right now, is the best pitcher that we've ever seen.
The Phillies at the Mets. Coverage begins today at 3:30 Eastern. Listen to Major League Baseball on 97.3 ESPN.
Hey, it's Pete from Chicky and Pete's. Let's celebrate summer. Chicky and Pete's Summer Shellfish is back. Enjoy Chicky and Pete's delectable warm garlic butter poached lobster roll and the debut of the mouth-watering lobster crab fries. Yes, lobster crab fries. Go to chickyandpete's.com for details.
Napa know-how.
Celebrate that.
PropSwap is the #1 app to buy and sell sports bets. Derek from Galloway made $800 cash just from buying and selling sports bets on PropSwap. Basketball, baseball, hockey. Just buy a future bet, hold it for a few weeks, then sell it for big profit. And if you're a buyer looking for better odds than what a sports book can offer, there's never been a better time to join PropSwap. As new users right now, get a free $100 match bonus. But hurry, the offer expires soon. Check out PropSwap.com or download the PropSwap app today.
Summer in the Garden State means Jersey Fresh blueberries. Hi, New Jersey Secretary of Agriculture Doug Fisher here. Jersey Fresh blueberries are bigger, better, and oh so flavorful. They're available right now at your favorite supermarket or farm market. Stay loyal to local. Jersey Fresh.
This is Sports Bash Saturday with Josh Hennig, live from the Matt Blatt Kia Studios. Here's Josh Hennig.
Josh Hennig here on Game Night on 97.3 Sports Bash Saturday on 97.3 ESPN. Listen, you're all lucky I'm here today, okay? You're all fortunate I'm here today. I didn't get a lot of sleep last night. I was in Atlantic City covering the PFL fight. I got 2 different games on my laptop while I'm doing station work. I got my phone running one game. I got I'm all over the place today. So you're all lucky I'm here today. Okay? But I'm grateful to be here. I'm glad you're all here with me here on a Saturday on 97.3. At least the sun finally came out. It was cloudy as heck this morning. Driving into work, I'm like, why is it so cloudy out here? Sun finally started coming out when I got to work. I'm like, that figures. Joining us right now on here, Sports Bash Saturday 97.3 ESPN, Kevin McCormick, Sixers beat writer over at 97.3 ESPN.com. Also Sports Illustrated at Kevin MCC NBA on Twitter. Kevin, how you doing this Saturday?
Josh, I'm doing all right, and I, like the rest of the people, am grateful that you came to work today.
I mean, there might be a list, like it might be a delineation of who's more or less happy, but it's still, I appreciate that. So, Kevin, I opened the show talking about this, and that is, I know that some of the comments that Scottie Pippen said in that GQ article have been controversial, right? And I've thoroughly prefaced by saying I think he might have been under some sort of influence because he's promoting that bourbon line. And every picture he takes now, he's got a glass of bourbon in his hand. So he might be perpetually drunk at this point. But you know what? What he said about Simmons is 100% correct. When he said that Ben Simmons is afraid of being humiliated, he's afraid of failure, and Giannis is not. I think we saw last night a perfect example of that. Giannis missed three threes, 0 for 3, but he still finished with 25 points. He still drove down the lane like he's unafraid of anybody, and the Bucks won. And you got to wonder, you know what? Giannis and Ben Simmons, they may have similar physical abilities, but they're completely different human beings, come from completely different backgrounds. And you know what? You saw last night why Giannis was an MVP and why Ben Simmons is the most hated man in Philadelphia.
I feel like part of it plays in the, nature versus nurture kind of debate. Obviously, like you said, they come from 2 completely different backgrounds. When you look at Giannis, this guy has scratched and clawed for everything. His life story, for those that don't know what his life like was before basketball, definitely check it out. It's crazy what he went through back in Greece, making his way to the NBA. And it shows that he has that hardworking determination. He doesn't take anything from anyone, and he's fearless. I mean, he's come this far and overcome all these odds. You think he's going to be scared about shooting a couple threes in a game? Like you said, right. He's not scared of being humiliated. He got here against all odds and is a multi-time MVP. Meanwhile, Ben Simmons, he was paid for this fame and this stardom and was highly touted from the beginning and was on the cover of Slam magazine and had the next LeBron tag and such. So I do believe that there's a lot of truth there of why Ben Simmons never really bounced back from that reluctance to shoot throughout his career is because he doesn't want to fail. He sticks to what works and what has got him here so far. Meanwhile, Giannis, it comes from the background of what you came from, and I think they're shaped mentally like probably complete opposite ends of the spectrum, to be honest.
Absolutely. And a side effect to that is, and I said this multiple times this week, Kevin, listen, I understand people are mad at Ben Simmons, but I'm honestly worried about his mental health. I really genuinely think that Ben Simmons, I don't know if he needs to see a therapist, a counselor, a pastor, if he needs a Bible, I don't know what it is, but Ben Simmons needs genuine help. And I'm not sure if he's ever going to get better as long as he's in a Sixers uniform. I think he needs to go somewhere else. He needs a fresh start. I think the Sixers would be better off without him at this point.
I don't know if they'd be better off without him. I completely tiptoe the side of the debate. I really see both sides, and I agree there's something really going on with him between the ears. And I believe it was last year Jackie McMullen put out an article that he did start to see a sports psychologist. So if that's something he still continued to do or maybe stopped, maybe it's something he should reconsider. Obviously, there was rumblings of family troubles going on behind the scenes, so I can't even imagine having to deal with something like that in the public eye, being on a team like the Sixers who were, almost crowned a championship contender from the beginning of the season. So there is a lot going on, both on the court for him and off the court. So I agree. There some added help outside of that, I think, is, great for anyone, and even more so someone who has to live in the public eye where everything they do is, around the bright lights of the paparazzi and stuff. But being better off without him is something I don't know if I could fully get behind, even with his shortcomings. Ben Simmons is still a phenomenal player, elite playmaker, high IQ, arguably the top defender in the league, easily the most versatile. I still say he should have been Defensive Player of the Year this season. So even with the negatives that come with him, I think it's still tough to say that the Sixers would be better off without him.
Okay, well, we could agree to disagree. I just feel like at this point in time, everyone needs to move on. And you know what? I understand that there was, as Woj reported, there's no formal trade request placed. But listen, I'm a little older than you, Kevin. And I'll tell you right now, I've never heard of a situation in my lifetime where people talk about moving on potentially if they're not prepared to move on from each other. You know what I mean? Like, you don't have a conversation with someone who's going to be your ex, for example, or a married couple doesn't go to marriage counseling or divorce counseling if they're not already thinking about life without each other. So as far as I'm concerned, when the Sixers and Rich Paul met this week, that was Daryl Morey and people saying, we didn't draft Ben Simmons. Does your client want to be here? If he wants to be here, let's talk and discuss things. But you don't have that conversation, you're not already thinking about it.
Well, I mean, it's a conversation that's probably already been had at this point. We know that Ben Simmons was reportedly on the table for James Harden. So these rumblings started back in, January, around when the Harden trade happened. I forget when it exactly happened. But, yeah, December. So, I mean, it was already like the inkling was there very early on. And after everything that's happened, in terms of needing a change of scenery, I think that could be a real possibility. But I could also see Ben Simmons still wanting to be in a successful situation. So I think it's going to be one of those tricky things where, he has the most powerful agent in the NBA. If at the end of the day, if he wants something done, something's going to get done. Rich Paul has shown time and time again that when one of their guys wants to get not only out of one place, but to another, he's going to make it happen. But I agree. If they're going out there and they're having these talks, if everything was fine and dandy, Rich Paul wouldn't have to go to Chicago and talk with Daryl Morey and Elton Brand. Right. So Daryl kind of said it in his end of the season press conference that they're committed to this big three right now, but they're going to weigh all options and, look at every possible angle of revamping this team. So with a guy like Daryl running the show and them having talks like that, it does feel like when you read the tea leaves that everything is still completely on the table.
Kevin McCormick joining us here on Sports Bash Saturday on 97.3 ESPN at Kevin MCC NBA on Twitter for all your Sixers and NBA coverage. Check out his work over at 97.3 ESPN and over at Sports Illustrated. Kevin, this offseason also is going to be an opportunity for Daryl Morey to really make his imprint on the team, because last year was a shortened offseason. It was basically a month or two for a lot of teams between the end and the beginning. And we know Daryl Morey is not complacent. This man has never sat on his hands in his life. The dude always finds a move to make. I mean, I remember when he took over the Rockets, like the full control of the Rockets, and he saw the end of the McGrady and Yao Ming era, and he said, I got to reboot this team. And he went through all these trades until he finally got James Harden and then Chris Paul. I'm not going to be surprised if the team that we saw in Game 7, not drastically different, but looks pretty different next season.
I could see it as well, especially with everything going on with Ben Simmons. When you trade a player like that, who knows what a guy like him could get in return. So I agree. It could look very, very different. I don't see Tobias Harris getting traded, even though that's chatter that I've seen on Twitter. I don't think that's a real possibility. I think him and Doc work so well together that it really wouldn't make a lot of sense to move on from Tobias Harris after the season he just had. But between what could happen with Ben Simmons, Danny Green's contract just came off the books, Dwight Howard, Furkan Korkmaz, there's a lot of decisions to be made with free agents as well. So he's going to have some cap flexibility, along with potentially moving an all-star, superstar type player, depending on how you view Ben Simmons at this point. So I agree, there could be a very strong possibility that we see 4 to 5, maybe, different pieces heading into next season, which would be remarkable. And like you said, Daryl's never sat on his hands. He's going to be working all offseason. And with how well he revamped the team pretty much in one sole night on draft night, people kind of have to be excited about what he'll be able to do now with a full offseason in his hands.
And also, no offense to Tobias Harris, but he doesn't have Simmons' resume. And his contract doesn't really line up with his resume. Like, yeah, in 2 years from now, Tobias Harris' contract is going to look like chump change. Because when Tatum and Donovan Mitchell get their contracts, that's going to blow away the Tobias Harris contract. We all know that. But for right now, Tobias Harris' contract is kind of untradeable, in my opinion. And whereas Ben Simmons, he's a 3-time All-Star, 2-time first-team All-Defense, 1-time third-team All-NBA. At least he's got a resume to go with the contract. So at the end of the day, whether people like it or not, Simmons is technically the most tradable commodity on the Sixers.
Exactly. That's why I really never understood when these debates came about that people started to talk about Ben Simmons as if him and his contract were almost untradeable, which was never the case. You just listed his entire resume, not to mention he's top 15 all time in triple doubles. He's 24. He's under contract for 4 years. Teams are going to want Ben Simmons. Brian Windhorst said on ESPN earlier this week that if the Sixers put him on the market right now, Daryl Morey would get more than a dozen offers on the spot. So Ben Simmons still has value. They can still get a nice return for Ben Simmons. And when looking at it all, I think when you look at this Sixers roster, first off, we talked about it all season. Tobias Harris is the perfect kind of third guy on a very good team. And Joel Embiid has shown that he could be the top guy on a title team with the way he played this year. And I think why Ben Simmons is the most tradable one is because it's clear the Sixers need that number 2 guy. You have your top guy, you have your third guy. Now you need that kind of co-star in the middle of them that is a little bit better than all-star level and can still play on a close to similar level of your top guy. So I agree. If you're looking at the entire big three, you don't trade Tobias Harris. Obviously, if someone has to go at this point, it's going to be Simmons.
Also, I just want to remind people that Ben Simmons' AAV is at $35 million. There's a lot of dudes who are way ahead of him in AAV. And on that list, by the way, is Rudy Gobert, who also has no offense. Klay Thompson, who is coming off multiple injuries now. Tobias Harris, his AAV is higher. And by the way, someone we saw last night is Chris Middleton, who's struggling in this series, but his team won last night. And Simmons has the same AAV, you ready for this, as Kemba Walker, Jimmy Butler, and Paul George. So he's kind of almost like that next tier down when it comes to money. So trading him is not, to me, going to be the biggest problem. The question everybody asks is, what do you get in return for him? And that's going to be the big question. Now, I'm not saying they can't get a return for him, but I like what Bobby Marks told Mike Gill earlier this week on Sports Bash. He said, you're not getting Dame Lillard. You're not getting Bradley Beal. You got to bring your expectations down. But Kevin, you know what I remember? I remember Daryl Morey trading for Chris Paul. He traded about 200 players for him. And guess what? The Clippers went to the playoffs the next year with that ragtag group that got traded for Chris Paul. So as far as I'm concerned, if Morey gets a bunch of really good supporting cast players and maybe brings in one of the players, like let's say he brings Kyle Lowry back home, just throwing out an example. So what if your starting lineup next year is Lowry, Seth Curry, Danny Green, Tobias Harris, Joel Embiid, and you got this huge, massive bench to go along with it. Don't forget, you have, let's say Tyrese Maxey's still here. That's still a pretty damn good team.
I agree. I feel like they could do a little better, maybe. Okay. Although Ben Simmons' stock may have gone down, I think that's still more than capable of getting a nice return for a player like him. I don't hate the idea of CJ McCollum. I think he fits a lot of what they need. Obviously, after how that playoff run went down, obviously I feel like it potentially could be a lateral move with how much you're giving up defensively with Ben Simmons. But I think you make a real valid point. Obviously, the bench was a very weak point all throughout the season and reared its ugly head even more in the playoffs. So if you could get, 3 to 4 playable guys and really fill out your rotation that way, I could see it, being a realistic thing that Daryl might do.
Do you think the idea of Lowry coming to the Sixers is viable? Is it legitimate? Or do you feel that's a pipe dream?
I feel like it's just a pipe dream. I don't know if the Sixers really have the cap room to pull a move like that where other teams could offer him a little more money. So unless he's coming on an extremely team-friendly deal, like he really wants to finish his career in Philadelphia and he's willing to do whatever he needs to make that happen. If I had to gauge it on a scale of 1 to 10 on probability, I'm probably 4 to 5 at the most of it being realistic.
Okay. All right. So then the next question is, I'll ask you, is Danny Green back here next year?
I would love Danny Green to come back next year. I think he was the unsung hero in the starting lineup all year. He said in his exit interview that Doc Rivers told him he wasn't going anywhere and that'll see him again next year. So obviously I think he's well liked. The price point is going to be an interesting thing. Obviously, I don't think the Sixers are going to pay him $15 million a year again after, getting up there in years and being on the latter half of his career. But with what he's done as a mentor and a vocal leader, both on and off the floor with this team, I think it's very tough to just let a guy like that walk.
Is there a guy who is going to be a free agent that stands out to you as being maybe not like a big name, but maybe a valuable piece for this team? Like we know Montrezl Harrell can be a free agent. We know some of the names are out there. They're not huge names, but there's some interesting names who are going to be free agents.
I haven't really dove into it that far. Basically, I'm more just looking at archetypes of players that the Sixers need. And one of them is a point guard. Whether they trade Ben Simmons or they don't, the Sixers need a point guard. If Ben Simmons is going to stay, the point guard experiment needs to end. The Sixers need somebody outside of him in that starting lineup who can run an offense, who can create on the outside. I mean, Reggie Jackson's about to be a free agent, although the Clippers are probably going to try everything in their power to retain him. I think he would be a nice name, but a shot-creating point guard who can help run an offense. Mike Conley's another interesting name. He was somebody I wanted to trade. I wanted the Sixers to trade Al Horford for something I wrote about for 97.3. I thought he would be an interesting name. So if, point guard is the position I want the Sixers to attack, I feel like it's their biggest area of need. How they go about doing that, whether it's a home run like Lowry or they play the margins, is truly on Daryl's hands. But whether it's trading Ben Simmons or not trading Ben Simmons, point guard is what they need.
Is there any idea of what you think the Sixers could also maybe do in terms of the bench depth when it comes to complementing some of the young players they already have? For example, Maxey, Thibault. Because to me, I wouldn't be surprised if they had to include Thibault in a trade if they trade Ben Simmons, but I'm dead set on them keeping Maxey. To me, I think Maxey can be a better version of De'Aaron Fox, in my opinion.
That is a hot take right there.
You like that?
I did not see that one coming at all. It's so tough with young guys because look at the Miami situation. They're kind of in that same boat that the Sixers were of. They refused to include Tyler Hero because, they said he was going to be the next Devin Booker and this, that, and the third. And then he flopped hard in his second season. And now I saw something on Twitter yesterday that apparently he's on the table now in trade talk. So Tyrese Maxey being that untradeable asset I think he's right up against the wall. I don't know if I'd want to part ways with him just because I think he's the most exciting Sixer that fans should be looking forward to heading into training camp just because of how much of a gym rat he is. And now he has a full off season with an NBA trainers and coaching staff. He could look like a completely different player heading into training camp. We know players typically take their biggest jump between years 1 and 2. So this is it for Maxey when he makes his arguably biggest jump of his career. So he'd be a very tough goodbye. I don't know if you trade Matisse, if you move on from Ben, because you're still going to need that elite level defender. And he's shown that he can be that if you give him, larger minutes. So it's going to be tough in terms of complimenting. I think just more shooting and more ball handling. that's really been the key for the Sixers. When you're looking at all these other playoff teams, whether it's in their starting lineup or off the bench, they have guys who can make shots. They have guys who can put the ball on the floor, and they have guys who can make the decisions when it comes to them. So it's literally just good, solid role players who understand what they're doing, whether it's keeping a guy like George Hill, what they decide to do, who knows, but just viable guys, obviously shooters, because you need in today's game, you can't have enough shooting. So obviously that's objective number one, but ball handling, creation, and just decision makers, that's what they need.
Kevin McCormick at Kevin MCC NBA on Twitter. Follow him for all your Sixers and NBA coverage. Joining us here on Sports Bash Saturday on 97.3 ESPN. Kevin, before I let you go, fill in the blank. Who wins the NBA championship this year?
I'm going to go Phoenix.
Okay.
I feel like they're the most fun pick. The Clippers were originally my pick, but every time I watch Phoenix, I feel like I just fall more in love with them. I think they're just a great story all around. So if I had to pick right now, I think I'm going to go Phoenix-Milwaukee finals with Phoenix winning.
I have to agree with you on that. We might not agree on the Ben Simmons stuff, but I will agree with you on that. Partially also is because of the fact that Kawhi is injured. I mean, if Kawhi was healthy, I would go with the Clippers over the Bucks. But
I agree.
I just feel like the Bucks are going to find a way to win this series in 6-7 games. And I think that the Suns, I just think that the Clippers have no answer for DeAndre Ayton. And I don't think Devin Booker's going to shoot horribly the rest of the series. So, it's just not going to happen. Although I'm really getting tired of these Devin Booker, Kobe analogies people are making. It's so bad. It's so poor. I mean, what is up with the world and constantly having to make an analogy? He's the next Kobe. How about him being the best Devin Booker that he is? How about that?
It's just the league and the marketing of their stars. They're trying to pave this next generation. These playoffs have been a great example for it with Donovan Mitchell, with Luka Doncic, Trae Young, Devin Booker now in the conference finals. There's so many young guys now who fans typically aren't accustomed to seeing in the playoffs. And while they may look at it as a downside of not having the LeBrons, the Steph Currys and such, now you have this nice, fresh young batch of who are going to be the next superstars when the Steph Currys and the LeBron Jameses retire. So, that's how it is. Obviously, no one can ever be satisfied. We have to compare now to everything back in the day, and that's just going to be a fact until the end of time.
Yeah, I'm still going to gripe about it. Josh, 973 ESPN. Kevin McCormick joined me here on Sports Bash Saturday. Kevin, appreciate the time and enjoy the rest of your weekend.
No problem, Josh. You as well.
Josh Hennig here on 97.3 ESPN with your thoughts and comments. Next, text board is open, 609-403-0973. We also got comments from Samson on YouTube I'm going to get to as well. He is going to jump in there as well with some comments. Again, text board is open, 609-403-0973. Dan from EHT, I see you as well. Don't forget, coming up at 1:20 today, Bob Wankel will join us to get more into the Phillies and their situation as well right here on 97.3 ESPN FM, the 97.3 ESPN mobile app. And yes, we are live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter, where you can watch the show. Josh Hennig hanging out with you till 2 p.m.
The NBA playoffs continue.
Paul George passes it up to Terrence Mann into the left corner. Beverly for three. It's wet.
Paul George and the Clippers return home to LA and win a critical Game 3. Can they do it again and tie the series up? Or will the Suns bounce back? Game 4 of the Suns and Clippers. Coverage begins today at 8:30 Eastern. The NBA playoffs, exclusively on 97.3 ESPN FM, South Jersey's sports leader.
On some models excludes Corvette with GM financing, excludes prior sales. See dealer for details. As you know, most car dealers in our area are still having trouble getting cars and charging a lot more for them. But Bennett Chevy isn't like most dealers. We kept what you love, our famous GM supplier employee prices. It's incredible. You pay what our supplier employees pay and not 1 penny more. And Bennett also gives you all the rebates. That's up to 25% off MSRP. 25% off. Plus, we've still got available 0% financing to save you even more. Shopping for pre-owned? Well, Bennett's still paying a minimum $7,000 for trades. So if any old junker's worth at least $7,000 towards any pre-owned in stock, think of how much your good trade is worth. And Bennett's now an authorized lease return center for all brands. And with our non-commissioned sales staff paid on your satisfaction, not how much you spend, there's no pressure, no hassles. The best prices, low rates, the most for trades. Nobody Chevy beats Bennett. Find new roads at Bennett Chevy, Egg Harbor Township, and BennettChevy.com.
PropSwap is the #1 app to buy and sell sports bets. Derek from Galloway made $800 cash just from buying and selling sports bets on PropSwap. Basketball, baseball, hockey. Just buy a future bet, hold it for a few weeks, then sell it for big profit. And if you're a buyer looking for better odds than what a sports book can offer, there's never been a better time to join PropSwap. As new users right now, get a free $100 match bonus. But hurry, the offer expires soon. Check out PropSwap.com or download the PropSwap app today.
Hey, it's Pete from Chicky and Pete's. Let's celebrate summer. Chicky and Pete's Summer Shellfish is back. Try our tasty baked oysters, New Orleans style. The debut of mouth-watering lobster crab fries, plus Cajun crawdad tots, Sicilian calamari, and more. Go to chickyandpete's.com for details.
This is Sports Bash Saturday with Josh Hennig, live from the Matt Blatt Kia Studios. Here's Josh Hennig.
Josh Hennig here on 97.3 ESPN. Leave your thoughts and comments right here, 609-403-0973 is the text word, and we're also live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. I always get to your comments in the order they came in. A little bit earlier, Dan from EHT chimed in at 609-403-0973. Dan says the basketball gods are teaching the Sixers a lesson because they tanked. They had Foles and Simmons, two unimaginable situations. One guy forgot how to shoot, and the other won't shoot. I mean, listen, that's one theory. I understand there's a lot of people who are anti the Sixers tank and the process. And listen, I wasn't a fan of everything Hinkie did. I thought there were a couple things he could have done very differently. But let's be realistic. The Sixers are not the only team that's ever tanked in the NBA. They're just the most famous one. All right. The Seattle Supersonics that became the Oklahoma City Thunder, they tanked for years. And they walked out of there with Kevin Durant, Russell Westbrook, Serge Ibaka, and James Harden. They went to an NBA Finals, but they were too young at the time, and they ran into the unstoppable force, which was LeBron James, Dwayne Wade, and Chris Bosh. The Golden State Warriors were perpetually a garbage franchise. They came out of that with Steph Curry because the Timberwolves decided to draft Johnny Flynn and Ricky Rubio. And they also got Klay Thompson. They got Draymond Green later in the draft. They built the team from the ground up. They were horrible. They were garbage. So there's a perception that, the Sixers tanking. Sixers are being punished for tanking. The Sixers just drafted two very unique situations. There's this idea that the Sixers are, the only team that's ever tanked. If you think the Sixers are the only team that's ever tanked, I can't help you, man. A lot of teams are really bad. The Hawks were really bad. The Warriors were really bad. Every team in the NBA has tanked at some point, okay? When the Seattle Supersonics blew up their team and traded away Ray Allen, they knew they had a chance to get Kevin Durant. That's why they did it. They blew it up. They got Kevin Durant. They moved to OKC. They were still bad. They got Russell Westbrook, all right? So I think there's a perception of the Sixers tanking, I think, is a bit false there. Did I agree with everything they did? No, absolutely not. But I think that it would make a lot of sense. Samson over on YouTube had a lot of things to say, but his main crux of a point is Kyle Lowry would bring the Sixers to the NBA Finals. I'm a Raptors fan. I know Kyle's a pit bull and a floor general. He hits threes, takes charges. He can defend players twice his size. Samson goes on to say Philly fans don't understand how Lowry changed the dynamic of a team. Plus, he can mentor Maxey. Listen, I would love Kyle Lowry on the Sixers. I think he'd be an amazing addition. I think he would make a lot of sense for this team. And I would basically make him the Simmons replacement. I would move on from Ben Simmons and I would bring in Kyle Lowry because Lowry can guard those perimeter defenders. You're right. He can mentor Maxey. He's somebody who brings that defensive attitude, and him and Danny Green on the perimeter, I think, can still have a couple of years really good. Remember, him and Danny Green were great together in Toronto. So we know he's capable of doing that. We know that they're capable of working together. And I think that Seth Curry basically is the Fred VanVleet of that situation. And then you have Joel Embiid, who's some amalgamation of what Kawhi and Pascal Siakam are. So I would love to see Lowry in Philadelphia. I don't know if it's going to happen or not, but I would love to see it. Personally, I think it would be great. I think the problem is that Lowry's got to decide, does he want one more big contract? Does he take a hometown discount? Does he do a sign and trade with the Sixers to get those extra years in the back end of his deal to spread out the money? A lot of things have to be figured out to get Lowry here. But I would love to see Lowry in the Sixers team. Absolutely. I think Joel Embiid would love it too. Just say. Josh Hennig here on 97.3 ESPN. Wrapping up the first hour of the show. You can keep your thoughts and comments coming. We are live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter, just like Samson and Kyle are doing. Also, Jeff Flynn and Pookie on YouTube. Text board is open, 609-403-0973, just like Dan from EHT did. This is 97.3 ESPN.
Health Update with Robin Stoloff, brought to you by Comfort Keepers, all the comforts of home.
Sometimes making small changes to your eating habits can add up to big results. Here's a good one. Chew slowly and put down your fork between bites. It works because eating
It's spring sale time at Rossi Honda. Lease a new 2021 HRV LX for only $129 a month. Drive a new CRV EX for $239 a month, or a 21 Pilot all-wheel drive for only $279, with oil changes included. At Rossi Honda, we treat you better, period. On Kelsey Drive in Vining. Shop us 24/7 at RossiHonda.com.
$32.95 down plus tax and tags. 36-month lease, 10,000 miles per year to qualified buyers. See dealer for details.
Welcome to AutoZone. Dashboard light problems? We can help. Our free Fix Finder service can read your check engine light, ABS light, and service indicator light, and give you possible solutions, verified by licensed technicians. You'll even get detailed results sent straight to your email, so you have them when you need it most. It's the most complete free warning light report, backed by the most robust database of technician solutions. The free Fix Finder service, only at AutoZone. Restrictions apply.
Get in the zone, AutoZone. Fishing in the morning and sightseeing in the evening.
The red and white Miss Barnegat Light is a 90-foot-long high-speed catamaran. Let Captains Lenny and Lou take you to the fishing grounds with daily fluke and sea bass fishing starting at 8 a.m. Evening cruises run nightly at 5:30 and 7. Offshore tuna trips begin in October, so book your trip now. Visit MissBarnegatLight.com for details.
Miss Barnegat Light.
This is Sports Bash Saturday with Josh Hennig, live from the Matt Blatt Kia Studios. Now, Sports Bash Saturday. Here's Josh Hennig.
Josh Hennig here on 97.3 ESPN. Second hour of Sports Bash Saturday. Talking a lot of Sixers, a lot of NBA throughout the show. You can chime in. Of course, the text board is open for all of you listening on 97.3 ESPN FM, the 97.3 ESPN mobile app at 609-403-0973. We're also live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. You can comment on the stream. Hey, man, listen, I prefaced this earlier. If you didn't catch me earlier in the show, I'm a little tired. I got home late from being at the PFL fights, the final regular season fights of their regular season in Atlantic City. They spent the entire time in Atlantic City in a bubble, so I had to get special clearance to get in and everything. So I got home late. I got in early, so apologies if I trip over myself a little bit today. So, but I appreciate everybody chiming in through the show. I'll get to you guys on the stream in just a bit. Don't forget, coming up at 1:20 today, Bob Wankel, Phillies reporter for the Crossing Broad, is going to join us. I don't understand what happened yesterday. I'm completely confused. You know, Aaron Nola has an amazing performance. The Phillies lose. Okay? They have Matt Moore coming off of an injury, and they win. And he's been a mediocre pitcher at his best this year. He's been really, really rough to watch. So, I think that the Phillies are a bizarre situation right now. And I got to ask Bob about it because I don't know what to think of this team. Or maybe they should just wear those red jerseys all the time. You know, they wore the Reds last night for the second game. The first game, not so much. Second game, they wear the Reds and they win the games. I mean, maybe that's the key. I don't know. So, but we have been talking a lot of NBA, a lot of Sixers, a lot of Ben Simmons throughout the show. As I mentioned in the first hour, just to kind of re-tie it back around. I'm watching Giannis last night, and I'm thinking, that's the difference. Ben Simmons is not Giannis. He could be Giannis, but he's not. And as Scottie Pippen said, Giannis is not afraid of the humiliation he's not afraid of failure. He's not afraid of, swinging and missing. So Ben Simmons, he is. And they come from two different worlds, two different mentalities. And Giannis is going to be great. And Ben Simmons we're still waiting on him to find that. So we'll see what's going on. Also, a little NBA news. It looks like Chauncey Billups is still the front runner for the Trailblazers job. According to reports last night, they were working on a contract. I hope he gets the job because, Billups is, first of all, a guy I think who can relate to players. He has that leadership, that moxie. He's got the pedigree. And I just don't want to see Mike D'Antoni get another job. I'm tired of that guy getting jobs. What has that guy ever done in the NBA to get any more NBA jobs? It's ridiculous. The dude's never been to an NBA Finals. He almost got there if it wasn't for Chris Paul getting injured. And realistically, all D'Antoni knows how to coach his offense. He just explosive offense, no defense. It's pathetic. He shouldn't be a head coach anymore. To me, his head coaching years are done. Portland needs help on defense. Portland needs veteran leadership. They need a coach who's going to uplift that team. And I think Chauncey Billups can do that. So I hope Chauncey gets it. Jason Kidd's the new head coach down in Dallas. Makes a lot of sense. He's a former Maverick, was part of the championship team. A lot of people think that Jason Kidd got a raw deal in Milwaukee because Giannis really liked him. I've heard Bobby Marks say that Jason Kidd did his best work as a coach in Brooklyn that one year he was there. That he did a great job despite all the odds being against him. So there's a lot to say about Kidd as a coach, and I think maybe he just didn't fall into the right situation. Rick Carlisle, who's now back with Indiana, Carlisle's on his third job with Dallas before he won a championship. Larry Brown bounced all over the NBA before he got to the Sixers in the NBA Finals, and then the Pistons winning an NBA championship. So I'm not against coaches getting multiple chances. What I'm against is coaches getting multiple chances who have a resume that shows that they don't do much. And that's who D'Antoni is, for example. So it's going to be a very interesting NBA next year. That's for sure. Some of these coaches in new places. Let's get to some of your guys' thoughts and comments as well. Text board is still open at 609-403-0973. We're also live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Groovy Savage. It's a very interesting name. Groovy Savage says, I feel like if Sixers got Kyle Lowry, we would be good. I can't help but agree. I would just love the Kyle Lowry thing. I think he's got the attitude, the tenacity, and he's a different kind of dude. He's a different kind of mentality. He's a different type of vibe. He walks in the room, and he's got the pedigree of winning a championship, being around the league, being an all-star. He comes back to Philly. I mean, how many times did that dude try to get in a fight in his NBA career? It feels like that guy is the ultimate I ain't afraid of nobody kind of guy. I said this last few months ago, actually, before the trade deadline. I thought that the Sixers would have gotten Lowry. He would have been a perfect matchup for teams in the postseason because he doesn't care if it's Trae Young, Kevin Durant, James Harden, Kyrie Irving. He doesn't care who he's going against. Kemba Walker when he's on the Celtics. Now he's in OKC. It doesn't matter. He looks at teams and says, I ain't afraid of you. Come get some. And you need that kind of guy because even if he gets beat, you need the mentality. You need a guy who's willing to go to war. The thing that made Raja Bell and Bruce Bowen and those kind of guys staples on their teams over the years was because they were just unafraid. It wasn't that they could actually stop the superstars. It was that they gave the superstars such trouble. Jimmy Butler was famous in Chicago for giving LeBron trouble because he looked at LeBron. He didn't care if he was LeBron. He said, I'm coming for you, big boy. And it drove LeBron nuts. That's why LeBron ended up respecting him. That's why when the NBA Finals were done and the Heat lost to the Lakers last year, that LeBron was so complimentary about Jimmy Butler because Jimmy Butler single-handedly kept the Heat in that series. And LeBron realized that that's the mentality. And yes, I still miss Jimmy Butler's Sixers uniform. Couple more comments over here on YouTube. Samson follows up and says sign and trade is basically a given because of the relationship that Kyle Lowry has with Masai and the organization in the city. Yeah, and I think that Kyle, in some ways, I think he knows his time is coming to an end in Toronto, and Toronto needs a rebuild. Toronto needs to hit a reset button. Pascal is the centerpiece of that franchise at this point. The Norman Powell trade felt a little forced last year. Gary Trent Jr. didn't change a lot of things for Toronto last year. It felt like Toronto was preparing for a Lowry trade. It just never happened. So I have to feel like that Lowry knows his time is coming to an end. And I think that Masai respects him, like you said, Samson. And I think that when you look at Kyle Lowry, he's going to get a pick of where he wants to go. And I don't think Kyle at this point is going to be some guy who's demanding money. I know people keep saying that, certain teams can't sign him. But as Samson said, sign and trade deals happen all the time in the NBA. I wouldn't be surprised if Kyle tells Masai, listen, this is where I want to go. This is what I'm willing to sign for. Let's make it happen. I think that the Raptors will be more than accommodating to that. So when I think of the situation with the Sixers, I think Kyle Lowry would make a lot of sense. But you got to move Ben Simmons. Now, the problem with moving Ben Simmons and bringing in Lowry is now your starting lineup is a bunch of small dudes with Embiid and with Tobias Harris. And in an Eastern Conference that has size, Tatum and Brown in Boston, Giannis and Middleton in Milwaukee, Durant, Harden in Brooklyn, even go down to Atlanta. John Collins, Bogdanovich, Hunter when he's healthy again. Having a lineup with Lowry, Curry, and Danny Green out there they're not going to have an advantage in terms of size. They're going to be undersized. But we saw the Raptors do this with Van Vliet and Lowry when Kawhi was there. So it's doable. I just don't know how doable it is or if the Sixers are willing to go that direction explicitly. So there's a lot to figure out for the 76ers this offseason, but I have full confidence. Don't trust the process. Trust Daryl Morey. That's what I've been saying. That's my new saying now. Don't trust the process. trust Maury, because Maury has a history of making moves, getting things done, and being great at that. So I expect the Sixers to make some moves this offseason for sure. 609-403-0973 is the text board. Let's go 97.3 ESPN FM or the 97.3 ESPN mobile app. If you haven't downloaded the 97.3 ESPN mobile app, it is free on the Google Play or Apple stores, wherever you get your apps from. You get all the news and updates from the Phillies, Sixers, Eagles, Flyers, and South Jersey High School sports right there on the app. And you can customize your alerts to only get the sports teams that you want. Just download the 97.3 ESPN mobile app and pick your alerts so you keep updated on everything that's going on in the sports world with Philadelphia sports with 97.3 ESPN. We're also live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter, where you can comment on the stream just like Samson and Kyle and Groovy Savage and Jeff Bone and Pookie have been doing throughout the show. Appreciate you guys joining in the conversation. Again, we have Bob Wankel from Crossing Broad coming up at 1:20 talk about the Phillies, because I'm perplexed with this team. And that's what I'm going to end this segment with. So Aaron Nola had arguably one of the greatest games of his life yesterday. And it's more than just the strikeouts, right? It's more than just the 10 strikeouts in a row. It's the fact that Aaron Nola went out there and just cleaned up his own mess. Guys got on base early in the game, gave up a couple hits, couple guys, base runners, but he rebounded. He didn't let them score, and he went out there. It was insane watching him just mow guys down. He finished with 12 strikeouts in 5 1/3 innings. But man, Alvarado blows the save. Ranger Suarez gives another run. Mets won the game. And I'm just sitting there thinking, this Phillies team is maddening. Then all of a sudden, the next game, Matt Moore. And I'm thinking, great, Matt Moore. Matt Moore's going to lose this game somehow, right? Nope. Matt Moore goes out there, 5 innings, 3 hits, no runs. I'm thinking, what the heck's going on here? And then the bullpen showed up. Brogdon, no runs. Archie Bradley only gave up 1 run on 1 hit. And then Hector Neris, who technically was demoted earlier in the day, goes out there and gets the save. I can't comprehend this team. I don't get it. I don't understand how this team is where they're at. So we got to ask Bob Wankel about what is going on with the Phillies. Does this team really have hope in a playoff hunt? You know, they're 5 games behind the Mets right now. It's not an insurmountable number, especially considering the fact that the Mets are the only team above 500 in the division. The NL East, the Nationals are 36-37, the Braves are 36-39, and the Phillies are 35-38. The Mets are only 7 games above 500, and they're only 5 games ahead of the Phillies. So this series could be a huge deal in terms of the Phillies down the stretch for their schedule. So we'll talk with Bob Wankel about that coming up next right here on Sports Bash Saturday. Josh Hennig hanging out with you, 97.3 ESPN FM and the 97.3 ESPN mobile app. It's free thanks to First Bank of Seattle City, and we are live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Just follow 97.3 ESPN to watch the show.
The NBA playoffs continue.
Paul George passes it up to Terrence Mann into the left corner. Beverly for 3. It's wet.
Paul George and the Clippers return home to LA and win a critical Game 3. Can they do it again and tie the series up? Or will the Suns bounce back? Game 4 of the Suns and Clippers. Coverage begins today at 8:30 Eastern. The NBA playoffs exclusively on 97.3 ESPN FM, South Jersey's sports leader.
PropSwap is the #1 app to buy and sell sports bets. Derek from Galloway made $800 cash just from buying and selling sports bets on PropSwap. Basketball, basketball, baseball, hockey. Just buy a future bet, hold it for a few weeks, then sell it for big profit. And if you're a buyer looking for better odds than what a sportsbook can offer, there's never been a better time to join PropSwap. As new users right now, get a free $100 match bonus. But hurry, the offer expires soon. Check out PropSwap.com or download the PropSwap app today.
We're very glad to be back. The Greater Hamilton Chamber of Commerce, in conjunction with AMI Atlantic presents the 35th Annual Red, White, and Blueberry Festival. Sunday, June 27th in Hamilton, the blueberry capital of the world. We're back with millions of blueberries, New Jersey's official state fruit. We're back with blueberry pies, cupcakes, cannoli, buckle, ice cream, and more. We're back with crafters, great food, and the Cruisin' Classics car show. We're back with live music from Stealing Savannah and Party with DJ Nikki G. Sunday, June 27th, Hamilton High School grounds, just off Route 30 in Hamilton. Free admission, follow signs to free festival parking. The Red, White, and Blueberry Festival brought to you in part by AMI Atlanticare, NJM Insurance Group, the Rothman Institute, BB&T Bank, now Truist, Adams, Raymond & Hagen, Menino's Cannoli Express, Top Crop Blueberries, and by Variety Farms. Supported in part by a grant from the New Jersey Department of State, Division of Travel and Tourism. We're very glad to be back.
This is Sports Bash Saturday with Josh Hennig, live from the Matt Blatt Kia Studios. Here's Josh Hennig.
Josh Hennig back here, Sports Bash Saturday, 97.3 ESPN. You know, I almost said game night again. shows you how tired I am after last night. But it's all good. It's all good. So get more into the Phillies conversation as promised. Joining us right now on 97.3 ESPN, Bob Wankel from Crossing Broad, as the Phillies split a doubleheader last night. And Bob, I'm still confused exactly how it happened. How you doing this afternoon?
What's up, man? How are you? Yeah, I think everybody probably feels a little bit conflicted after watching those two games last night, yesterday afternoon. I mean, they lose the one they should win, and then they win the one they probably should lose when you're going into it. So, yeah, I mean, it was a whole mixed bag yesterday.
Yeah, and you know what was most ridiculous was, and I say this tongue-in-cheek, but, you know, they lose the game, as you said, they should have won with Aaron Nola with his amazing performance, but then they win the game with the alternate red uniforms. I mean, maybe they just keep the red uniforms on the rest of the weekend until they lose again.
Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, I think they're 2-1 now. I know we're talking small sample sizes here, but I think they're 2-1 in red. So maybe they should just ride that out here, man.
I mean, it's got to be better. Did you see the White Sox uniforms yesterday?
Yes, I did.
I mean, those are like pajamas. What is that?
Yeah, not good. Nah, not good. I actually like the red. I know that some people think it has a little bit of a Clearwater spring training vibe to it, but I think it's a nice look. Something a little different, you know?
Yeah, I'm cool with the red. I just didn't like the White Sox yesterday. When I saw that late last night, I was like, oof. I mean, that makes the red, like if there's someone who doesn't like the red, what I do is I just say, let me show you the White Sox uniform, and you can decide which is the better look at this point.
Yeah, well, one thing I can definitively tell you that is no matter what, it's better than what they're doing with the All-Star Game uniforms. I can tell you that.
By the way, those got to be the ugliest All-Star Game uniforms ever, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, everyone talks about, like, you look at the pictures from the 70s and 80s and all the classic uniforms and everybody kind of together wearing their city's uniforms. And, like, that's the look. That's the one thing aesthetically that's still kind of nice about the All-Star Game. And, you know, and just to kind of, like, turn your back on the nostalgia element of it is it's disappointing. It's like, baseball just has no idea how to market itself. And this was like a way, I think, for them, they felt like to maybe sell new merchandise. Nobody's buying that stuff. I mean, come on.
Bob Wankel joining me here on 97.3 ESPN. Let's get into Aaron Nola for a minute, because I think a lot of Philly fans are conflicted about him. You know, he's a guy who has been amazing at times, like we saw yesterday, and other games, not so much. And while it was great to see him work out of a situation and then have that great 10 consecutive strikeouts, he finished with 12 Ks in 5 1/3 innings. What is Aaron Nola at this point in your eyes?
He's a very good starting pitcher. You know, everyone wants to have the conversation, is he an ace or is he not an ace? And listen, it just depends which numbers you want to look at. You can construct an argument that would tell you that he's one of the 10 best pitchers in baseball over the last 3 years and that he's an ace. And then there's, you know, I think an argument to be made for that he's a second or third tier guy, maybe even. And, you know, he's had his struggles this season. He's got to find some level of consistency here in 2021. He hasn't. He's had outstanding starts. He's had absolutely putrid starts. And I mean, I think we saw that yesterday. He was fantastic. And then you go back to last Saturday against the Giants in San Francisco, and he was horrible. And many other starts this season, he's certainly battled it a little bit. So I still think that there's a high ceiling there. I still think that he's one of the better pitchers in the game. And I almost think that some of the frustrations with Aaron Nola are directed more so because the team as a whole is so inconsistent and has been so underwhelming. So it's easy to kind of look at the best players, the highest priced players, and maybe take out a little bit more extra frustration. I mean, it's still early on here. We're not even halfway through the season. He still had some very good games. But when you talk to people, you know, I think that the frustration is boiled over to the point where they're like, trade him. He's not that good. He's overrated. And I don't know that that's entirely fair.
Well, also, Bob, you need all the pitching you can get. Like, if you're serious about trying to maybe do anything in the division this year or maybe in the future, you need all the starting pitching you can get, right? Like, you can't just be handing away pitchers for nothing.
Yeah, I don't know what you do there, right? Like if you bring in a Zach Wheeler and sign him to the deal that you did, and you re-sign JT Realmuto, and you have Bryce Harper, you have all these win-now parts. I just don't think the Phillies are in any position where they would consider really selling off major parts, tearing this thing down, talking about another 3 to 4 year rebuild, because A, they're just not in a position as a major market team with expectations to do that after a 10-year postseason absence. And B, I just don't think that there's really any guarantee, as the Phillies have just recently proven over the last number of years, that it's going to get you to where you want to be anyway. So, people that are like, trade Aaron Nola, trade JT Realmuto, sell. I mean, listen, they can do some things to maybe reconfigure the complexion of the team a little bit, but they are not in position to make wholesale changes and sell off major pieces. At least I don't think so.
Bob, I'm glad you said it because it led me right into what I was thinking as well when I was driving in this morning, and that is, this Phillies team, you signed you signed Bryce Harper to all of that money, right? You brought back JT Realmuto. You brought in Dave Dombrowski. You convinced him to come out of that semi-retirement he was in, chasing that Nashville baseball team situation. You didn't do that to rebuild the team. So, what is a reasonable expectation that Philly fans can wrap their heads around for this season, Bob?
I mean, expectations for this season, I think you see what they are. I mean, maybe they put together some 3 to 4 week stretch here going through the beginning and into the middle of July where they get hot and they kind of force ownership. They force Dave Dombrowski to kind of become a buyer, and maybe they can get themselves back into this division race. But certainly, as currently constructed, I think the Phillies have proven that this current core with its complementary pieces aren't good enough. So, if you right now are looking forward to the Phillies at 4-10 today, that's great. And I'm not telling you that you shouldn't watch and that you shouldn't root and you shouldn't believe. But at the same time, I think it's a long shot that this team is currently constructed is going to reach the postseason, make up 5 games on the Mets. I don't see it, but maybe they can ride a hot streak here, something they really have struggled to do, and maybe buy some complementary pieces that gets them back into it. But I think for 2021, I mean, you're looking at a team that is roughly a 500 team like they've been the last couple of years. And I really do think that when Dave Dombrowski came here, they made some, I don't want to call them win now moves, but stay competitive moves. And I think what they're saying has really been more about 2022. I think that this year was an evaluation year in a lot of ways for Dave Dombrowski. I think one of the reasons he's here is to not only figure out how to get this current group over the hump, but maybe kind of evaluate everything that has gone wrong throughout this organization from top to bottom over the last number of years. And I don't know that you can do that in just 2 or 3 months. So I really kind of look at this year as we're going to try to stay competitive, but we're also going to evaluate. And when we get to the off season, then we're going to put our foot on the gas and kind of figure out what we can do to get to where we want to be.
Bob Wankel joining us here on Sports Bash Saturday here on 97.3 ESPN at Bob Wankel CB on Twitter. Covers the Phillies for Crossing Broad. You can catch him with Mike Gill on the Sports Bash every Monday and Friday at 4:40 p.m. here on 97.3 ESPN. You mentioned the games today. We will be airing that here on 97.3 ESPN. Coverage begins at 3:30 with the Mets and the Phillies. And no, I don't expect them to win today because of Jacob deGrom. But my favorite part of the weekend is tomorrow, though, Bob, because tomorrow it's Jared Eichhoff versus the Phillies. How about that, a twist of fate? It's Zach Wheeler versus his former team, then Eichhoff versus his former team on each bump.
Yeah, I mean, first thing you have to do is just look and talk about Zach Wheeler and how good he's been. And I know that he struggled a little bit his last time out. He only lasted 3 innings. But we're in a situation here where you're looking at one of the best pitchers in the National League. I think he's a shoo-in for the All-Star game. And really, if you take away the guy that's going to be pitching for the Mets this afternoon, I think might be one of 2 or 3 odds-on favorites to win the National League Cy Young Award. So Zach Wheeler's been tremendous. Jared Eichhoff, if he's the guy that ends up going, I think the Mets actually right now have a TBD listed. I know there's been some talk that it probably will be Eichhoff. He's a guy, I respect the fact that he's kind of hung around and that he's got himself back to the major league. But that's certainly a matchup the Phillies should win. And, they're probably going to need to if they want to split this thing. Though, I will say this, man. Jacob deGrom, I believe his last 5 starts, 27 innings, no runs, 7 hits, 3 walks. 43 strikeouts. So if you believe in the law of averages, and I know you guys are down at the shore, you stop in, you go to casino, and you look at the roulette numbers coming up, and you see like black hit 11 times in a row. You kind of walk up to the table and just say, it's due to be red one time. Maybe that's what you get with Jacob deGrom today. I'm just saying, maybe he's due to be human and maybe give up 2 or 3 runs today. Maybe the Phillies get something out of Zach Eflin and eke one out. Who knows? Crazier things have happened.
Well, also, Bob, let's be realistic. If you take the 2 games we saw yesterday between the Mets and the Phillies, both teams only scored 3 runs over 16 innings. So it's not like the Mets are coming in here, smashing the ball out of the ballpark. So, if Eflin can just keep this a manageable game and the bullpen does a semi-all right job, it's not like you can maybe just wait deGrom out after about 6 innings.
Yeah, I mean, you could make an argument the Phillies could have swept yesterday's doubleheader and they had 6 total hits between 2 games. Aaron Nola had 2 hits. Rafael Marchand had 2 hits, and I think they get the 1 out of Real Muto in game 1, and then obviously Harper's homer in the second game. So, yeah, you said it. I mean, Zach Eflin has cooled off here last couple times through the rotation. They really need him to get back on track. I think that he's kind of a key piece in this whole thing. If you're only getting consistently decent starts out of Nola and Wheeler, it's going to be really tough. So if they can get Zach Eflin back to where he really was the first 5-6 weeks of the season, starting today, it changes the outlook, I think, or maybe at least gives the Phillies a shot to kind of hang in things. But they need an outing from him today because he was flat out bad on Sunday in San Francisco.
Now, speaking of the bullpen, so they demote Neris. Alvarado comes in, blows the save. The next game, Neris comes in, no longer the quote-unquote closer. He gets the save. I mean, what the heck is going on with the Phillies bullpen at this point, Bob? It feels like, maybe Girardi just needs to go out there and do what Kapler used to do. But like, there's no roles anymore.
Yeah, I think they may be trending that way, to be honest with you. Hector Neris blows 3 out of 5 saves, 5 out of 15 overall, and they have to make a move. And it's not that they have a better answer. People were screaming for Archie Bradley. You saw what that looked like. I mean, he just does not have the arm, I don't think, to consistently close games in high-leverage spots late. You see what Alvarado did. And I actually thought Alvarado threw the ball pretty well yesterday, and he's thrown the ball fairly well overall now for the last 2 weeks or so. He was obviously impacted by Rhys Hoskins' inability to catch a throw from the mound yesterday with the sun. But the Phillies don't have a clear answer at closer. And I did ask Joe Girardi last night after the second game. I said, what have the last 24 hours done to you in terms of how you look at the closing role? And he said, well, for now, Alvy, meaning Jose Alvarado, is going to be the guy. So they've committed, at least here in the short term, to Alvarado being the guy. And it looks like that he will be the guy moving forward, at least, over the next week or two, see how it goes. I wouldn't be shocked if Hector Neris gets more opportunities coming up here. They just don't really have another guy back there. And if they, Phillies do make a run and get themselves in a position where they think about adding, I think they really have to consider bringing in somebody that can close games in the 9th inning. I think that really, in addition to maybe solidifying the back of the rotation, would be the move that they would be most likely to make.
By the way, I'm looking at the Phillies lineup for today, Bob, here at 4:10 p.m. Folks can hear right here on 97.3 ESPN. Your infield is missing a name, and that's Alec Bohm. It's going to be Hoskins and Williams on the corners, it looks like, and then Torres and Maton in the middle. So, is this just giving Alec Bohm a day off to kind of gather his thoughts, or, is there maybe any concern we should have about Bohm's future?
Well, I mean, I think there's 2 things here. He's ground ball heavy, and he swung the bat a little bit better in June, hitting over 300, but talking about facing a guy like Jacob deGrom, this is a natural spot, I think, from an offensive standpoint where you can kind of give him a breather. But I think the other component is that, as you saw yesterday and as you've consistently seen throughout the course of the season, he is a well below average third baseman. And I know that the initial thought was that he would be able to athletically handle it and become an average to slightly above average third baseman. But the writing to me is on the wall there. I mean, he's just not good enough to stick at third base. I think long-term he's either a first baseman or a left fielder. I do think he has the athleticism to at least be adequate and catch some fly balls out there. But the 2 errors that he made yesterday, one on that little flare, at his waist that he drops. I mean, that's a ball that a JV high school player makes, 10 out of 10 times. And then in the seventh inning in the second game last night, a double play ball that he kind of just stabs at and opens the floodgates there and allows the Mets to tie the game. You just can't trust the guy right now, and it's a shame. Just the latest example of the Phillies having some young talent that you feel good about and things not necessarily panning out the way that you want them to. I wouldn't write off Alex Ohm. I'm not telling you that he won't be a productive player for a number of years for this team, but he's certainly proving that he is not a long-term solution defensively at third base.
Hey, if Pat Burrell can go to the outfield, why can't Alec Boehm, right?
That's exactly right.
Bob Wankel joining me here on Sports Bash Saturday, 973 ESPN, at Bob Wankel CB on Twitter, Phillies beat writer for Crossing Broad. Bob, I want to ask you as well, little off the topic, do we ever get the viewership numbers for Peacock over the weekend? Because I haven't been able to find them at all.
I actually have not heard about how those numbers went. My guess is just kind of based on the social media interaction. I didn't feel like as many people were engaged with the game. Maybe that's just because it was the beginning of the summer and it's a weekend and people just naturally weren't going to watch day games. Certainly Father's Day on Sunday might have impacted things as well. It's a shame because I actually thought the booth was pretty good with John Miller and Kruk and Rollins, and I believe it was Kukral was the other guy. Just a good booth. It was an entertaining broadcast, but a lot of people, like, I'll give you an example. My father's 74 years old. He watches the Phillies every day and, obviously sends me a text message and says, "Hey, where are the Phillies at?" And he said, "They're on Peacock." And he texted me back and said, "What the hell is Peacock?" So, I think a lot of people probably ran into that last weekend.
Well, also it's the fact that this is not like YouTube where you just could type in like Phillies, or Facebook where you just go find the MLB Facebook page. Like, to get Peacock, you had to go through a whole process. And, for me, I was surprised there were no commercials on half the games. Like, most of the breaks, remember, it was, "Hey, we'll be right back after this." I was like, well, that's a little weird. But it's just the whole concept of, like, it feels like that experiment, like, failed miserably. That's why they're not hyping it up. I feel like if it would have went well, they would have been out like, "Look at all the viewers we had," and now we haven't heard anything about it since. I feel like they're like, all right, that didn't go so well.
Yeah, I think that may be partially it. I do think long-term, unfortunately, with the regional sports networks and NBC Sports Phillies and stuff like that, I kind of think that maybe the streaming element is going to become more prominent. So I think it was almost like a trial run, so to speak. I think that this is the direction, regardless of how well it went in terms of ratings last weekend. I think this is kind of where maybe some of these regional networks are trending. We'll see what happens here. But just in general, it's a shame with the broadcasting, listening to Tom McCarthy and the variations of Ben Davis and Ruben Amaro and Kruk, and the fact that these guys are calling a game from empty Citizens Bank Park when, the team's out on the road. It's a shame. I think that you lose something with that. And I know that there's financial considerations. I know there's COVID considerations and all these other different variables, but I do think that the broadcast, this is an element. Those guys are doing the best they can under the circumstances, but I do think something's kind of lacking with those guys not physically present at the stadium, too.
Well, also, Bob, you mentioned the financial considerations. At the end of the day, as long as these regional sports networks are still paying this obscene amount of money to teams like the Phillies and the Padres and the Giants, these other organizations around the league, the games are going to be on somewhere. They just might not be on the traditional, whatever channel it might be on, on the Xfinity, it's 846 or whatever is NBC Sports Philadelphia. People will find a way to watch the games. I just think you got to find a better way than putting it on Peacock. There's got to be a better way to make that available to people because, for example, like I said, you can find things on YouTube a heck of a lot easier than on the X1 platform.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the hurdles that Major League Baseball is trying to figure out how to clear at this point. How do we make our game more accessible? How do we kind of usher it into the 21st century? Now here we are 20 years into it. I just think that they're struggling to find a way to make the game more visible to younger fans in general. And, the streaming component, the Peacock thing is just sort of one example, maybe the most latest example of this awkward line and their inability to kind of grasp what's going to work and what's not going to work. I will say that from a social media standpoint, baseball's gotten a lot better. The Phillies in particular and the clubs, the individual teams have gotten much better at social media and making the content a little bit more engaging for its fans. But I do think long-term, getting viewership, getting eyeballs, they've got to continue to work through a little bit of this murkiness here.
Well, in the meantime, people can pull up ESPN Plus and watch the Marlins game on Wednesday on ESPN Plus if they don't want to watch it on regular TV for whatever reason, I don't know. But Anyway, there's that going for them. Bob Wankel joining me here on 97.3 ESPN. Give him a follow on Twitter at Bob Wankel. CV covers the Phillies for Crossing Broad. You can catch him every Monday and Friday on the Sports Bash with Mike Gill talking Phillies and other random topics. And as all guests, he appeared here on Sports Bash Saturday. Bob, appreciate you joining the show, and enjoy the Phillies game if that's possible today.
All right, man. Thanks for having me. Anytime. I'll talk to you soon.
Josh Hennig here on 97.3 ESPN. Yes, you can hear that Phillies game today on 97.3 ESPN FM, thanks to ESPN Radio's coverage. Major League Baseball begins at 3:30 p.m., and then first pitch is set for 4:10. You can hear the game right here on 97.3 ESPN. All right, we'll wrap up the show. Coming up on the other side, I'll give you a few picks thanks to FanDuel Sportsbook, promo code Hennig when you sign up to get on all the action. 31 odds when you bet a team to win in the conference finals. Again, new users get 31 odds if you bet a team to win their next game. Of course, risk-free bets are available, but you have to sign up with promo code Hennig on FanDuel Sportsbook. Plus, 21 order to play. Present in New Jersey. Full terms and conditions at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. Wrap up the show coming up next. I'm Josh Hennig. This is Sports Bash Saturday on 97.3 ESPN FM, the 97.3 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Seattle City. And we are live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter.
Today on Major League Baseball on ESPN Radio.
He swings and launches one, and this game is tied. Wow! Monster home run from Harper.
It's an NL East showdown as the Philadelphia Phillies head to Citi Field to face Jacob deGrom and the first-place New York Mets.
Jacob deGrom, we're seeing right now, is the best pitcher that we've ever seen.
The Phillies at the Mets. Coverage begins today at 3:30 Eastern. Listen to Major League Baseball on 97.3 ESPN.
On some models excludes Corvette with GM financing, excludes prior sales. See dealer for details. As you know, most car dealers in our area are still having trouble getting cars and charging a lot more for them. But Bennett Chevy isn't like most dealers. We kept what you love, our famous GM supplier employee prices. It's incredible. You pay what our supplier employees pay and not 1 penny more. And Bennett also gives you all the rebates. That's up to 25% off MSRP. 25% off. Plus, we've still got available 0% financing to save you even more. Shopping for pre-owned? Well, Bennett's still paying a minimum $7,000 for trades. So if any old junker is worth at least $7,000 towards any pre-owned in stock, think of how much your good trade is worth. And Bennett's now an authorized lease return center for all brands. And with our non-commissioned sales staff paid on your satisfaction, not how much you spend, there's no pressure, no hassles. The best prices, low rates, the most for trades. Nobody beats Bennett. Find new roads at Bennett Chevy, Egg Harbor Township, and BennettChevy.com.
Baseball had that green tie game, bottom of the ninth, bases loaded. Well, on FanDuel Sportsbook, you get more than one shot to swing for the fences because FanDuel is letting you place your first bet risk-free. That's right. New users get up to $1,000 back in site credit if your first bet doesn't win. There's a reason why FanDuel Sportsbook is America's #1 sportsbook. They've got great odds in all different types of betting markets with unique and fun bet types like same-game parlays and always-on promotions to let you get more action out of every game day. Just download the FanDuel Sportsbook app and sign up with my promo code Hennig to get in on all the action and your first bet risk-free up to $1,000. That's promo code Hennig with FanDuel Sportsbook. Must be 21 or older, play and present in NJ or PA. First online real money wager only for a risk-free bet. Refund issued as non-withdrawable site credit that expires in 7 days. Restrictions apply. See sportsbook.fanduel.com for details. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
This is Sports Bash Saturday with Josh Hennig, live from the Matt Blatt Kia Studios. Here's Josh Hennig.
Josh Hennig back here on Sports Bash Saturday, 97.3 ESPN. Final segment of the show. Thanks again to Kevin McCormick for joining us in the first hour. Talk a lot of NBA and the Sixers. Thanks to Bob Wankel for joining us. Talk about the Phillies. Don't forget the Phillies coming up 3:30 today versus the Mets right near here, 97.3 ESPN. Thanks to ESPN Radio's coverage of Major League Baseball. Tonight, we will have Western Conference Finals. Game 4 between the Suns and the Clippers. Hear all the action right here on 97.3 ESPN. Tomorrow, Eastern Conference, Bucks versus Hawks. Game 3 right here on 97.3 ESPN. I typically give you guys a couple picks here on Saturdays. We went 2-2 on the picks yesterday, so not the greatest showing in the world, but we're still in the 60 percentile over the last 13 months. So that's always a plus. You know, got to hold myself accountable. You got to track all these picks for everybody out there. So I got a same game parlay for you guys tonight. Suns and Clippers. First of all, the line is +1 for the Clippers at home. I'm staying away from that with a 10-foot pole because it's a -10 for both. That is basically the odds makers telling you that to pick them. So stay away from anything that has to do with the over-under or the line because the value on those numbers are basically pick them. So the odds makers are basically telling you that it could go either way. And if they can go either way, then there's really no opportunity for you to don't waste your money. That's what I'm basically saying. But here's the same game parlay idea for you guys for today. All you can do is FanDuel Sportsbook. Same game parlays are available on FanDuel Sportsbook. So I don't see a reality that Devin Booker is going to have another bad game. I understand that Pat Beverly deserves a ton of credit for how he's played in this series, but Devin Booker in game 2 got his face smashed in game 3 is probably still getting used to wearing that mask on his face. I just don't believe that Booker's going to score that few points again. 15 points in the last game was the least number of points he scored in the entire postseason so far. For the postseason, Devin Booker is averaging 27 points a game. And he scored at least 25 points. 25 8 times in the postseason. I like those odds. If you score 25 or more points 8 out of 13 games, I'm rocking with that. So give me Devin Booker to score a minimum of 25 points. Paul George to score a minimum of 25 points because still there's no Kawhi, no Serge Ibaka. He is the primary offense guy. He's going to get a ton of shots. And for the third leg of the same game parlay, give me DeAndre Ayton to grab at least 8 rebounds. Now, the reason why I go with 8 rebounds is because DeAndre Ayton in his last 7 games is averaging just over 10 rebounds a game. You go through the entire postseason run for him, he has only had less than 7 rebounds once. One time, and that was game 6 versus the Lakers. Otherwise, every game, he has gotten at least 7 rebounds in every game. And actually, he has gotten more than 7 rebounds in all but 3 games. So again, 9 out of 12 games, he's getting 8 or more rebounds. So you throw that together. Devin Booker, 25 minimum points or more. Paul George, 25 or more points. DeAndre Ayton, 8 rebounds or more. You got a plus 138 odds. $20, you walk away with 47 at the end of the day. So, FanDuel Sportsbook, promo code Hennig to sign up. Must be 21 or play. Gambling problem. Call 1-800-GAMBLE. See full terms and conditions at sportsbook.fanduel.com. We're talking a lot of Phillies as well with Bob. I wanted to update you guys on what is going on with the Phillies. The Phillies just made another move. They have reinstated Andrew Knapp from the 7-day concussion injured list. They have recalled Eniel De Los Santos from Lehigh Valley, and they've optioned Rafael Marchand and Matt Vierling, the Lehigh Valley. So looks like De Los Santos is at least going to spend the rest of the weekend in Philadelphia. Andrew Knapp has probably been activated because you have 2 back-to-back days afternoon games. So we already know that Real Muto is playing today, but Knapp might play tomorrow just because of the way they like to break things up for the catchers. But your starting lineup, as I mentioned earlier, no Alec Bohm. Your lineup is Herrera, Hoskins. I hate Hoskins in the 2-hole. I'm with Mike Gill on that. Mike Gill and I don't agree about everything. We agree 100% on this. I hate Hoskins in the 2-hole. That 2-hole needs to be somebody else. Harper, 3. Real Muto, 4. McCutchen, 5. Luke Williams, 6. Maton, 7. And Torreyes, 8th. And then Eflin, 9, pitching against DeGrom. Listen, the Phillies are going to win today. It's because they outlast DeGrom. DeGrom goes 5 innings to get to the best bullpen. That's the only way you're going to win today, in my opinion. Hear all the action coming up 3:30 on 97.3 ESPN. Thanks again to everybody for listening to the show today. Thanks, everybody, for chiming in throughout the show, whether you chimed in on the feed, video stream, at 97.3 ESPN on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. You can watch the Sports Bash with Mike Gill Monday through Friday. Game night with yours truly, Josh Hennig. And then the Locker Room with Billy Schweim on the weekends on the stream where you can watch the shows. Also, we thank Bob Wankel for joining us earlier in the show. Also, Kevin McCormick joined us in the first hour. If you missed any interviews from the Sports Bash with Mike Gill, Game Night with Josh Hennig, or Sports Bash Saturday, make sure you subscribe to the 97.3 ESPN YouTube channel. Don't forget 97.3ESPN.com and the 97.3 ESPN mobile app for your Phillies, Sixers, Eagles, Flyers coverage all year long. Have a great weekend. Be safe. Stay hydrated. I will catch you all again on Monday at 6 p.m. right here on 97.3 ESPN FM.
You have the choice, whether it's going out for dinner or ordering takeout at a local restaurant or buying that new outfit from a local boutique. Those choices help to put money back into your community. And Town Square Media South Jersey puts a spotlight on local businesses.
Ambient Comfort Heating and Cooling Professionals. AmbientComfortNJ.com.
Filling Marble and Tile Outlet, Philadelphia Avenue and Route 30 in Egg Harbor City. FillingMarble.com.
Dennisville Fence, serving you since 1952. Be the envy of your neighborhood.
East Coast Roofing, Siding, and Windows services all of South Jersey. If you call, they'll show up. Call East Coast today at 609-646-1444. Online at eastcoastroofing.com.
Comfort Now by Bob McAllister. Improve the comfort in your home. Call 609-400-1005 and ask about discounts and rebate incentives. Visit iwantcomfortnow.com.
Thank you for supporting your local businesses. From Town Square Media South Jersey.